Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the return of the Thrilling 32.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Thrilling 32 in the middle of July. It's a Christmas in July Christmas present for the viewers. We're going to finally wrap up the Thrilling 32. We've been waiting a while. Maybe. We'll see how this goes. But yes, we're back for we're gonna combine the third round and the final four tonight in the interest of getting things done here, because this show where we decide the final four is always a little short, and the next one's always a little short. So we're gonna put them together here, anyways. So tonight we're gonna find out who the final four are for the wood coasters and the steel coasters, and then we're actually going to go through the final four matchups and get down to our finalists. And then the last show we'll go through who the champions are. We'll go through the final top 50 rankings, and then announce who has won the contest, who I now know who the winner is finally.
Well, that's good that you finally know. Because it's a big question mark there for a while. Who was gonna? Because
I was leaving everybody in suspense.
Yeah, the Qualtrics or whatever, and
yeah, the Qualtrics form was really good. It was very informative and very enlightening to how people were picking these things, and it gave us some stuff to talk about there in the early shows too. So
we realized that nobody knew what the hell they were doing, which was expected. I don't even remember what happened in these first rounds, and you know what?
Well, you went AWOL for one of them.
It's probably better that I forgot what happened in those first rounds, I'm thinking.
Probably, yeah.
Hold on. Didn't Alex do one of these shows at one point?
Yeah, for the steel first round, you just completely went AWOL. You called in reinforcements.
I don't even remember that. That's so long ago. That's hysterical.
Yes. So I hope Alex enjoyed work a couple weeks ago on the 4th of July. That must have been fun for him. But
yeah.
Anyways.
As I call it, Losers Day. In England.
Yeah, Losers Day, Victory Dollars, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's jump into it here. We're going to the Son of Beast region, and the championship matchup in the Son of Beast region is Balder from Liseberg in Sweden going up against Boulder Dash from Lake Compounce in Connecticut. And this is one where, frankly, Andy, almost nobody had Balder even in this matchup, so it's really hard to tell where people would have gone had they had this matchup, because most people had Phoenix or Mystic Timbers getting to this matchup against Boulder Dash. I mean, most people had Boulder Dash, a couple people with Renegade, a couple people who apparently have never watched the Thrilling 32 before had Prowler. Right. Prowler, for some reason, just doesn't do well. But I mean, is Balder seeing a little bit of a spike from our trip last year?
Yes.
Do you think that's factoring in here?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think Balder's continuing here? Because there were some people who were like not so fond of Balder.
Well, and that's the thing about it is, like, once again, using critical thinking, I'm able to determine that Balder's actually a pretty good ride. And
fine ride.
I've heard a lot of people, and even before you guys went over, I've heard a lot of people say really good things about Balder. I have not heard those good things being spoken about Boulder Dash at all, especially in
I've heard more and more people saying that Boulder Dash is just not what it used to be.
No, and I think what we're seeing here at Boulder Dash is a lot of historical rankings of people who wrote it maybe 10 years ago and remember it in a much finer condition than what it's currently in. But a lot of people that have gone there recently have said nothing but bad things about it. So the question
I've moved it down on my list.
Well, and the question on this is, who's voting? Do we have some more recent Boulder Dash writers, or do we have legacy writers? And then we have Balder coming up out of nowhere, which I've heard a lot of people say it's better than El Toro in a lot of respects. Um, so I would not be surprised. I would be very happy. Now, Danny, mark this down. Mark this down on this date.
Oh, hold on. I got my pen.
Mark it down. That Andy Robarczyk said that he would be happy that a European coaster moved ahead of an American coaster in this tournament.
Wow. Okay. So Andy says that Manta is better than Raptor.
Oh,
Got it. All right.
yeah.
All right.
That's what he said.
Moving on to the final four from the Son of Beast region is Balder from
Oh.
Lisaberg. So Balder knocks off Boulder Dash, and Boulder Dash historically, top 10, top 5 in most years in this poll. So Balder, I think, maybe it's a little bit of both, but Balder clearly getting some fans over the last year.
Well, and that's really the first big shoe to drop here, isn't it? In this tournament.
Well, and yeah, I mean, a lot of people had Phoenix or Mystic Timbers going up against Boulder Dash there, but a lot of people had Boulder Dash going to the final four. So now that entire region is just in shambles for most people.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of to be expected in that region.
Yeah.
But I do think that outside of Prowler, that Boulder might be the best ride in that region. So I don't think it's wrong. I think objectively looking at this region and seeing Boulder come out of it, my top rides in there are Prowler and Mystic Timbers. I think those are both fine, really great roller coasters. So Boulder, I've heard nothing but good things about for the most part. So I'm not really surprised. And when Mystic Timbers went down in the first round and Prowler went down in the first round, then that became real easy for me as to what the best
and
ride
you
in this
lost
region.
interest, quite frankly. So
Yeah, well, true, but it's probably the right choice. It's and you know what, that sometimes correctness is important.
Well, speaking of correctness, the second group here is the Pegasus group, and it's a battle of Holiday World. Here we've got Legend going up against Voyage, and I mean,
Yeah.
there's a correct answer here. We all know what it is. Is there any question here?
No, there's not a whole lot of discussion here that the Legend and you and I had ridden it just recently together. And I like the old Legend better. I'm not gonna lie. I've said this.
Legend is still running great,
It's
and
still a great ride. You still get that helix and you still get to
yeah.
yell keep going and
I
but the
mean,
Voyage.
I don't know that I'll ever disagree that the old ending was better,
Oh.
but I still like the new ending, and
I'll tell you what,
that's
it makes it a lot easier to ride because I thought I was going to die a few times on that old ending.
well, yeah, that's true. I mean, we were one step from the headless horseman himself a
We
couple times.
were. There's no
Um,
doubt. And
but
also
I mean,
I'm going to say also no speaking of no doubt is the winner of this matchup.
well, yeah, and I mean, it's Voyage is one of those rides, every year when you go to Holiday World, it's like, is it really as good as I remember it? And it's like, it always is.
Yeah, no, it
It
always
just
is.
always is.
I was
So,
talking to some people who had ridden Steel Vengeance for the first time, and I was talking to them about they're like, so you think Vengeance is better than Voyage? I'm like, absolutely yes. But there's people out there that think Voyage is better than Vengeance, and that's always the debate is Voyage or Vengeance. And until we do a
yeah.
combined poll, we'll never know.
Oh, that may be true. So yes, it is Voyage moving on to the final four. So Voyage will take on Balder. The one of the least surprising results that we'll have tonight. But let's go to the next group where we had two very surprising results. The Scamper group, where we have two European rides going up against each other for a spot in the final four. We've got the What the Hell is Rutschebanen from Tivoli
Yeah.
Gardens going up against Wildfire from Kolmården in Sweden. Two rides that were built essentially a century apart. Rutschebanen goes back to 1914 and Wildfire was what, 2016, I think it
Yeah.
is. So you've got rides that are over a century apart with a spot in the final four on the line here. Wildfire finally knocked off Lightning Rod after many years of debate. Rutschebanen upset Shivering Timbers, which some would say upset Rampage in the first round. The whole this is another region where the entire group is just in shambles for most everybody.
Well, yeah, and really,
Everybody had Rampage or Ravine Flyer up against Lightning Rod. Like that's how
yeah.
this went.
And to me, the lightning rod thing's a little surprising. The Rishtibanen on that side, it was kind of like a toss up between those four rides. Like,
Right.
I'm shocked that Rishtibanen is here, as we're still talking about. I'm actually pretty shocked. But those four rides are kind of like in that same zone in my mind of where of who could win. But I think Lightning Rod finally falling off. Are we finally seeing the demise of Lightning Rod?
A
People have
little bit. A
another
little
one
bit.
that people have not been speaking well of in
Yeah.
terms of ride experience lately.
Well, the interesting thing with Wildfire, and I think I probably said this months ago when we started the Thrilling 32, the interesting thing with Wildfire is it's got the size and it's got the terrain elements that Lightning Rod has. Um, and a lot of people think that Outlaw Run, is a little short. And I
Hmm.
always thought it ends at the right time based on the speed, but you wish it had more track and it had more speed to do things with. And what's interesting is, Lightning Rod is the opposite of that, where it goes into the brake run, balls to the wall, and it feels like you had the momentum to keep going, and they just didn't build more track. Wildfire is kind of on the opposite side of both of those things, where Wildfire has a lot of track and it's a lot longer than both of those rides. But at the end, it does start to meander just a little bit, and you don't go into the brake run, full steam ahead. It's like it feels like the ride ought to be ending, and the last drop, and the last drop comes off of like a higher part of the ride where you kind of do a turn that goes up the hill and then it's got to drop on the other side of it. And it's more floater airtime. It's not the traditional RMC ejector airtime that we're used to. And some people kind of take a tick off from that. But when you're riding it and you get off of it, it's like, well, there's still a fun little twisty element there. There's an inversion towards the end there. You could have gone into the brake run, balls to the wall about 400 feet sooner. But I kind of liked having the last inversion, the last little pop of air time, and the little floater hill, and the two turns into the brake run. So it 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 seems unfair to me that people criticize rides like Lightning Rod and Outlaw Run, and then turn around and criticize Wildfire for doing what people say those other rides should
Yeah.
have done. So it makes sense to me that Wildfire's here.
Yeah, and with between these two, I'm gonna give the edge to Wildfire just because I feel like it's the more well known of the coasters, and like I don't know if I even watched a POV of Rich Tabanin. I don't think I cared enough to watch one.
Well,
Oh,
but
yeah.
yeah. Um, so moving on to the final four from the Scamper group, it is Wildfire from Kolmorden. So we have two Swedish wood coasters in the final four now, all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, right? All of a sudden.
All of a sudden,
Boy, I wonder why. I wonder why.
geez, what a surprise. Everybody is shocked at them all.
Everyone shocked at the results here tonight.
All right. Well, let's round it out with two rides from the Wild West and the Rolling Thunder group. We got Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City, the aforementioned Outlaw Run, going up against Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm. And this is one that I'm going to turn over to you here because these are two rides that are, I mean, they're really high on my list as well. They're really close to each other, but these are two rides that you like a great deal as well.
Well, and that's the thing is like Outlaw Run is that was that the first ground up RMC, right?
The first topper track,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Outlaw Run's been kicking for a while here, and you already said it that the criticism of it is how short it is. And then I've always thought that the corkscrew at the end was a little strange, where you're kind of like hanging out of it, a little uncomfortable at times. But overall, a really top tier ride. Now, I have always been a huge Ghost Rider fan. Ghost Rider
Yeah.
is one of my favorite wood coasters anywhere. I think what that thing does is amazing. Um, The limitation is if you sit in the front half of the train, I don't think it's as good of a ride. I don't know if I would rank it in my top 5 if I was ranking it based on, like a row 2 ride or something. But
Right.
once you move to that back row and you are riding in that last row, and you're going through that track and you're getting the ejector air and the air time, and it feels like you're falling out of the car at some points. That is really a top tier ride. That all being said, I don't believe this poll has ever respected Ghost Rider the way that it should. I am a little surprised. I know some people were upset that Outlaw Run beat El Toro. That was a big upset, or not an upset, but a big decision that people had to make in this.
Yeah.
But now getting to this round, I don't feel as if Ghost Rider has the legs, even though I think Ghost Rider is the superior ride. I don't think this poll is gonna agree with me, and I think Outlaw Run's gonna win here.
Yeah, it's pretty close, but it is Outlaw Run that moves on to the final 4 here. So we have Balder going up against Voyage, and then Wildfire going up against Outlaw Run. So we've got another RMC
Hmm.
on RMC matchup here in the Wood Final 4.
And that's going to be an
Um,
interesting matchup too, because now you're talking a lot more factors, because Lightning Rod's out now for the first time in like forever, right? This is usually, we're always talking about Lightning Rod.
yeah, we're in uncharted waters now here on the Wood
So,
side
and,
of
and,
things.
and that doesn't necessarily mean that Lightning Rod um isn't higher than Outlaw Run, right? It could still be.
Well, you're right. This doesn't. So Lightning Rod was beaten by Wildfire, right? So all that means is that Wildfire is higher than Lightning Rod.
Yeah,
It doesn't necessarily mean that Lightning Rod can't be number 2. It
exactly.
certainly can. That means Wildfire would have to be number 1, and then all the other rides would have to be 3 or lower. So
Hmm.
take that what you will. Do you want to roll right into the semifinals for the Wood then, and stay on Wood, and then we can go to the Steel after we have
Yeah,
the
let's do things
finalists
different.
determined?
Let's
Yeah. All right. So let's go back to Balder and Voyage then. Is there any chance here that the love that Balder has gotten here is enough to put it above Voyage
No,
in
not
your
at
mind?
all. Not at all.
Pretty short-winded there.
Yeah.
Yes, it is Voyage moving on to the championship once again. The champion since 2017 at this point here. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 is that 6 years in a row. I think I rattled off right
Mhm.
there, and 7 times total. So it's looking for 7 in a row. No big surprise that Voyage is going to the finals here. Now, we just sort of talked about Wildfire and Outlaw Run in the context of Lightning Rod. Now we have to make a decision between Wildfire and Outlaw Run. So
Well,
Outlaw
I'm
Run's
gonna
been
go back
very
to our.
reliable.
Well, I'm trying to open up the old document here.
Yeah,
So Outlaw Run was 3 last year with 94.88%. Lightning Rod had 96.3%. So,
big jump.
um, and then I'm looking at what other coaster. Wildfire was all the way down at 13. So we can assume that Wildfire beating Lightning Rod, that Wildfire made a pretty huge jump here.
You would think the only wild card there is what people are doing with Lightning Rod now.
True. And Lightning Rod might have made a big fall, but well, yeah, both can be true too.
Maybe not that
Um,
far though.
yeah. So, and then Ghost Rider that we just talked about was 91.5%. So Outlaw Run still holding steady there. Woo! We know Wildfire beat Lightning Rod though, which was number 2 last year.
That's the like if you just look at the raw numbers and just this matchup,
Yeah.
it seems like Outlaw Run's the pick, right? But when you put this matchup into context with the rest of what has happened to this point, you start to question it.
Yeah, because Wildfire has beaten Lightning Rod, and Lightning,
And
like
I
you
think
said,
you can
Lightning Rod could have dropped.
I think you can convince yourself either way. You can convince yourself, well, Wildfire isn't jumping that high, and Lightning Rod probably dropped because of the chain and all that stuff, and that's why Wildfire beat it. So, but it's not jumping enough to beat Outlaw Run.
And the
So,
other
if you
problem
want to
is,
pick
is
Outlaw Run,
the other problem is with all of Wildfire's other rides in there, there's nothing else that really stands out in that group that you're like, oh, well, we can compare it. So if for instance, I don't know, like a Ghost Rider was in there, or for instance, El Toro
yeah, that's
was in
true.
there, there's nothing else to compare it to, even Gold Striker. So you did a really fine job with that selection. So really, you have to decide, did Wildfire and Lightning Rod like flip spots?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing here. Outlaw Run, strength of schedule, right? I mean, El
Yeah.
Toro's always done well. Ghost Rider has been buzzing around the top 10-ish or so the last
Yeah.
several years. So it seems like Outlaw Run is the more battle tested of the two, if you will.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I'm gonna force you to make a prediction
I'm
here.
gonna go with Outlaw Run.
Okay, interesting. All right, audience at home, get ready, make your predictions here because pretty much none of you had this matchup to begin with. So you so you get a free do-over here.
Can play
Um,
again.
moving on, yes, right, second chance pool. Moving on to the championship to take on the voyage is Wildfire
Yes.
from Cole Morden. So,
Oh,
um, so now I think we can say with absolute certainty that Wildfire has jumped because it's no longer a case of Lightning Rod dropping. That may have happened some,
yeah.
but Outlaw Run there's no reason for that to go
There's
anywhere.
no
So
reason for that one to drop.
Wildfire has jumped. We can say that for sure. So now, are you all of a sudden a little bit nervous that Wildfire might beat Voyage now because it's just beaten two former champions in Outlaw Run, Lightning Rod? Is this a delayed reaction to the new ride
I know a lot
effect?
of people have really raved about Wildfire. It's one of those I watched the POV. I'm like, okay, it's a solid ride, but is it the best wood coaster in the world? And I've not heard a whole lot of people, even from the group that you went with, say that they thought it was better than Voyage. I'm gonna say no, but who the hell knows at this point? Because
Anything can happen when these big trips happen.
no, anything can happen, and Wildfire probably is now. I would be more willing to say I feel like Wildfire now is a contender that you're gonna have to deal with now for
It's
as long as we do.
perhaps it's the new lightning rod that you have to think about every year
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of moving parts here. But I feel like Wildfire is now going to be one of those perennial. This to me is not a Terran situation where Terran like jumped up into the top five and then immediately fell out. I don't feel like that's going to
this
happen.
feels different.
This feels different because of the things I've heard about Wildfire. Like it's won other polls before. Didn't it win Rob Alvey's poll at one point? Like
Yeah, the one year that Rob Alvey did his own poll, it won that poll.
yeah, so like it's won stuff in the past and other polls out there. But I feel like now you actually have the voters that have written it, and I feel like it's going to be one of those ones that stick around, but
Yeah.
probably not. But you never know because Outlaw won 1 year, Lightning Rod won 1 year, so
Yep.
those numbers for the wood coasters are so tight usually, but Voyage has been kind of so head and above. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, it
talk about
hasn't been
that.
close, but Wildfire's never been this high before. So
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. We'll see what happens.
all right, let's jump on over to the steel coasters. Let's keep moving here. Let's go to the Drachenfire group first. That's our first group tonight. And we're going to stay on theme here where we've got a battle of RMCs. We've got Iron Gwazi from Busch Gardens, Tampa going up against Untamed from Walibi Holland. So we've got the Steel Vengeance that's missing the third half. And we've got the Steel Vengeance that's half the size going up against each other. So now we have to decide ultimately, if we all agree that Steel Vengeance is gospel, right? Would you rather have the just as big but shorter version or the half the size version, but all the craziness at the end.
Yeah,
I'd rather have the craziness at the end in the smaller package in Untamed, but that's just me.
and I feel like I think what you just said is what my issue with Iron Gwazi is everything was so high to the ground, and um all the big moments were so high up. And usually that's a good thing, but on the RMCs, the highlights of Steel Vengeance are that low to the ground, the spirals that make you feel like you're in a different universe.
And that's what sets it apart from everything else, right? Because
Exactly.
a lot of the big RMCs have those big sweeping elements, but what Steel Vengeance has that the others don't is it has the combination of the big sweeping elements and the low to the ground stuff. Because the smaller ones have the low to the ground stuff, they don't have the big, long, speedy, aggressive elements. But Steel Vengeance has everything, right?
Yeah. And like I liked
Steel
Iron
Vengeance is
Gwazi.
like you took Iron Gwazi and put Untamed at the end of it.
Yeah, right. Um, and I liked Iron Gwazi. I'm not saying I didn't like it's in my top 10 or whatever, but I don't know. But a lot of people do like Iron Gwazi too. Like a lot of people rank that higher than Vengeance, which I think is obscene and ridiculous.
Yeah, that's people do dumb stuff.
Yeah, people do dumb stuff, and that's one of those dumb things. The question is it better than Untamed?
And Untamed has done well in this poll, and it's not just me because there's lots of people who've written Untamed
Yep,
in this poll.
let's go.
Untamed has always done well. I was
And is this the first
number
year Iron Gwazi's in this or the second year?
second year.
Okay, so we might actually be able to go to the document and see what's going on here. So
I think Untamed ended up number 2 last year.
Untamed with number 2 with 99.3, and Iron Gwazi was 5 with 99.05. So my God, you can and, and I'll say this too. I didn't ride Iron Gwazi last year, so my ranking alone could have shifted this matchup.
Well, yeah.
Like my ranking alone could have shifted what happened here. Because if I put this in my lower half of my top 10, like that could have some impact. And when we're talking 0.05 versus 0.38, we're only talking about 33.33%.
It matters. It matters. It matters.
Your votes do matter here in this poll. It's not
well,
like
and you have a lot of credits too. So I mean, your vote's going to weigh, have some weight to it.
Yeah, I just hit 555, and I'm up there now.
That.
So that makes me want. So originally I was going to say Iron Gwazi, but that makes me want to vote Untamed now because I don't think I put Iron Gwazi that high. I think I put it in my lower half of my top 10. And maybe outside of my top 10, to be completely honest with you. I'm going to say Untamed.
All right. Moving on to the final 4 from the Drachenfire group, as probably a stray cat is running around my front yard. Moving on to the final 4 is Untamed from Wallaby Holland. Knocks off Iron Gwazi. So Untamed does outrank Iron Gwazi for yet another year. And some people think that I overrank Untamed. I mean, it's towards the back half of my top 10 at this point.
Is that person's name Alex?
He's one of them.
Okay.
He's like I have it at I think I have it 3 or 4 on my RMC list, but it's behind rides like Vengeance, Zadra, and Wildcat's Revenge.
Yeah.
Untamed and Wildcat's Revenge. I got to look at which one I have higher. I put them right next to each other, but they're both in my top 10. So so Untamed is going on to the final 4 here, and it's going to take on the winner of our next matchup. And I name dropped here as we go to the Turbulence group because after knocking off Wildcat's Revenge in the last episode, we now have Zadra from Energylandia in Poland going up against a former champion from a couple years ago, Jurassic World Velocicoaster from Islands of Adventure in Orlando. So, we've got Zadra, which, I mean, is this another wildfire instance?
Well, that's where we're at.
Coasters? Is that what you're worried about right now?
Yeah, because Zadra last year was ranked 24.
you had no reason to think that Zadra was even in
No.
contention here. I mean, there's plenty of people, actually, I think over 50% of people that didn't even have it getting out of the first round this year because they saw Lightning Rod at 12 from
Mhm.
last year on the steel side.
And
And
then
got
it beat
scooped.
Wildcats Revenge that we don't know where that's gonna rank.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like Zadra Wildcats Revenge, I mean, the new RMCs have tended to do very well. I mean, we saw Gwazi coming at 5 last year, right? So you could very easily convince yourself that Wildcats at least in the top 10, which
And
means
Velocicoaster,
Zadra
a
would have to.
former champion too, like knocked off the king for 1 year.
Yeah. If
Like
if only for if only but for 1 year, Velocicoaster can say it is a thrilling 32 champion.
that's like, and that's like at this day and age, that's impressive. That's
If
an
rides
impressive
could
stat.
talk.
That's something. Um,
So where are you
I don't
going here?
know. I'm gonna have to go with Velocicoaster. I can't say Zadra. I don't believe
It
it's
feels
Zadra.
like a to be the man, you've got to beat the man type of
Yeah,
thing.
and just like I do believe in Joe Hendry, but I don't believe in Zadra.
All right. Well, moving on to the final four, it will take on Untamed in the semifinals. Is Zadra Energy Landia has knocked off Velocicoaster. So our first matchup in the Steel Final Four is Untamed versus Zadra.
You can throw it away. I
Throw it
don't.
away.
Yeah, you can throw it away. I don't even know here anymore.
All right. Well,
Um,
just adding to Andrew Barczyk's amazing night, we're going to move on to the Wicked Twister group and talk about two more European rides. We're going to talk about Ride to Happiness from Plopsaland in Belgium against the hashtag Church of Taiga from Linnanmäki in Finland. I learned that was a thing at Iron Menace Media Day, that apparently the Church of Taiga is a thing amongst enthusiasts. I
I
had no idea.
well then it must win this because that's the only thing I'm going off of because I have no idea about either of these two rides. I the only thing I hear is the way you guys rave about Taiga, so I'm gonna have to go with Taiga for this one.
Yeah, Taiga was a special ride. I mean it's if you take things like look at some of the rides that are in this group like your Mavericks and your
Yeah.
Terrans. I kind of actually compared it to both of those rides. I said it's like if you took Terran and what Terran tries to do and tries to be, and you gave it the intensity of Maverick. That's kind of what Taiga ended up being, and it's got a big top hat, like Velocicoaster has. I think if you were to strip all the theming away from Velocicoaster and just put the coaster out in the middle of somewhere, I think Taiga is actually the better coaster.
Hmm.
And you leave it up to theming whether or not you have it you have Velocicoaster ahead there.
Well, I'll be honest with
Um,
you. I have some issues with Velocicoaster. I think there's a lot of great things on it. I think there's a few throwaway things on it. The whole ride is not perfect to me versus like a Steel Vengeance in my mind. Like that whole ride is a perfect ride. Like there's no throwaway moments on that ride at all for me. Every single
yeah.
moment matters. But Velocicoaster, there's some stuff I'm like, okay, that was fine, but it's not like an amazing portion. Um, but Taiga and Ride to Happiness, I'm gonna have to go with Taiga just because I don't know anything about either of these two coasters.
All right. Well, moving on from the Wicked Twister group to the final four is Taiga from Linnanmäki. So Taiga survives, knocks off the Mach Extreme Spinner, the Ride to Happiness. A great run for the Ride to Happiness, knocked off Iron Rattler and Expedition G-Force. But the run comes to an end, and Taiga is moving on to the final four. All right, so now we have maybe the least interesting of these four matchups. We've got
Yeah.
Steel Vengeance from Cedar
But
Point going up.
Who knows though? With the way this
Who
shit's been
knows?
going tonight.
Going up against Hyperion from Energylandia as well. A chance for two Energylandia coasters to be in the final four here if Hyperion can pull off the upset. It's already knocked off Millennium Force and Fury 325, which lots of people shocked at the Fury 325 upset. for Hyperion. That's one that I probably
Yeah.
disagree with. I still prefer Fury over Hyperion, but I know plenty of people who like Hyperion. So
And
you know,
Hyperion was not ranked last year?
was it
Oh,
outside?
41.
Yeah.
41. Making
So
it maybe one of the biggest jumps in Thrilling 32 history to jump.
I I I think it is. I think I checked that at one point. That it will be.
Wow. I still take Steel Vengeance though. Like, come on now. Like,
Yeah, I mean we've talked about it enough on this show
yeah.
as it is right now, right? Steel Vengeance is just I mean, and I rode Steel Vengeance again this year. I hadn't ridden it for a couple years. It's just like Voyage, right? Where you walk up to it and it's like, is this really going to be as good as I remember it? Like I talk about this ride all the time. It's like one of the best rides ever, if
Yeah.
not the best ride ever. It can't possibly be as good as I remember. It's like, no, it is. It
No,
is every
no,
single time.
no, no.
Every
It's
single time it is.
yeah, every single time. It is. It is. It's the best. It's the best.
It is.
So yeah,
Um,
Vengeance.
so yes, it is Steel Vengeance that knocks off Hyperion and wins the Moonsault Scramble group. So we have our Steel Final Four set here. We've got three RMCs and an
Oh,
Intamin here. We've got Untamed, which will be going up against Zadra, and then we've got Taiga going up against Steel Vengeance here in the Steel Final Four.
woo! I have no idea. Well, I have some ideas. I know what's right.
uh,
I know what's right at least. I don't know what
right.
came out in this poll.
All right, well then let's find out who's moving on to the championship from these two matchups. So let's start with Untamed and Zadra. This is a little bit of a different animal at this point. A lot of comparisons are made between Zadra and Iron Gwazi. The difference is Zadra doesn't have the high to the ground ending that Iron Gwazi does. It actually has a really low to the ground ending. It's not quite as long as Untamed or Steel Vengeances, but it has the high speed, really aggressive, rip your legs off type of ending that those rides have, just in a little abbreviated fashion. So the question is, if Iron Gwazi wasn't good enough to beat Untamed, could Zadra, which in my opinion is an improvement on Iron Gwazi, could Zadra have enough to beat Untamed?
and once again, we don't really have a whole lot of information here, do we?
No,
We know how good Untamed did, like, but Zadra's that complete wild card again, where we've seen it now upset some big rides, and we see that it's a legit contender. We know that it's gotten a whole lot more ridership over the last year. Not even just your group, but I feel like all these people, when we went to Hollywood Nights, I can't tell you the number of Thusies that were wearing European shirts from parks. God knows where they were. I don't even know where they were.
you've never heard of.
I can't even pronounce most of them, let alone hear of them. So I don't feel like it's just your group that went out and rode all these new rides. I feel like there's a lot of people traveling. I see that's to be like a big thing that everyone's talking about. I just read a story that that people in Spain took out water guns to shoot tourists because they're so sick of tourists showing up to their town that they're trying to get rid of them. That tourism is blowing up because of cheap airline flights and cheap hotels and people not wanting to buy things anymore but trying to get more experiences, and all these tourist towns are just overwhelmed, and I think we're seeing a runoff of that into the coaster world as well. So it's not just your group. Like, we like to joke around a lot that it's your and
It's
your.
it's definitely more than I mean, we saw a number of people who were not with the group at some of these places too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, those are called foreigners. They're called locals usually, those people.
no, 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 no. No, Nick Feller, he submits a bracket every year. We ran into him at Energylandia for 2 days. They just
That's
happened to be
just
there the same 2 days. We're there on a completely different trip that they did on their own. We just happened to be there.
that's just
So
strange. I'm not gonna
yeah,
line. That's
it's like
weird.
hey, we come all this way and we got to meet in Poland. Like
halfway across, people go to American parks
meet someone
anymore.
who lives like
Where
right
are
down
all
the
the
road.
American park goers at? They don't even go to Six Flags. Why do people even care about the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger? You don't go to the damn parks anyway.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Hell, you'd be more concerned if I don't know, Europa merged with Six Flags. That would be a concern. That's where everyone's going. No one's going to Cedar Fair or Six Flags parks, but they'll all be lining up to go to what is it, Kidia?
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah,
Nope.
we're all lining up to go there all of a sudden.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
It is tempting though.
Right.
It looks amazing, but
Yeah. All right. So what's your pick?
I have no idea. I'll say Untamed just because it's number 2 and um Zadra beat Velocicoaster, didn't it?
Well, yeah,
It did beat
yeah.
Velocicoaster.
Well, Untamed could still be number 2. But it is Zadra. Moving on to the championship here. Zadra knocks off Untamed. So are we destined for the Zadra Steel Vengeance Championship that people have been asking for years? Are we about to get that? We've got the first half of it. Now we just need the second half, which is Steel Vengeance versus Taiga, and we need Steel Vengeance to win this one.
I keep reminding myself why we keep putting this show off is because I just don't want to talk about this nonsense.
All of a sudden, you're like, "This is why it's July." And
this is why it's July. So talking about the Thrilling 32.
And ironically, Top Thrill 2 has still only been open for a week.
It's only been open for a week, and we're still here. Hey,
the last time we recorded this show, I think it was about to open, and it's still about to open.
It's still about to open. I'm going to tell you right now, it's my new number 1. Top Thrill 2. There's only about 500 people that can contest me on this. So Top Thrill 2, my new number 1.
None of whom are on this show.
None of whom are on this show, or I don't even know none of whom I even talk to on a regular basis. So I'm gonna say Top Thrill 2. If I can round up some good voters, those 500 voters, we all put it number 1.
Well, there you go. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we've got Steel Vengeance, defending champion here. We've got we've got Taiga here, sort of the new kid on the block, if you will. Here, a big spike from the trip, obviously, but has always at least with the few number of voters who have ridden it in the past have always ranked it very highly. Always suffered from not a lot of ridership. So, Taiga is a legitimate ride, but is it legitimate in the way of knocking off Steel Vengeance?
I have watched POVs of Taiga, and I can tell you that it looks like a solid ride. There's parts on it that I'm like, I don't get at all. Like I don't know if it's not coming through on the POV or it's just like a throwaway element here or there. But I will say Steel Vengeance should wipe the floor with Taiga. Would be my assumption.
All right. Well, moving on to the championship in the steel bracket to take on Zadra is Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point. So
we've got thing I've heard.
Well, yes. Time. So we've got Voyage going up against Wildfire in the Wood Championship, and we have Zadra going up against Steel Vengeance in the Steel Championship. So, we still have a possibility for the same 2 winners as we've had the last several years, but we've got very different opponents.
We've got very different opponents. That this whole thing feels like this whole poll has been blown up, and then anything can happen at this point. Wow.
I mean, is this the first time in a long time where at least one of these champions, like, you're questioning just a little bit, because both Wildfire and Zadra have undoubtedly made really big jumps.
Huge jumps.
Are you thinking that maybe at least one of them has actually done it?
Well, the thing about it is if you treat them like new coasters, like they already have like a solid standing, and if you get this big jump of people that have all voted now, and you see this big swing, we know this poll treats new coasters better. Are we treating these coasters like new coasters, and then they're going to settle in? I don't think that's what's happening. I think we're
I mean,
seeing
in
them
some
take
ways
down.
they kind of are, right?
Yeah, but I don't see them falling. We've seen a lot of new coasters jump up and then fall down. I don't see them jump. I
Yeah.
think they did the opposite. I think they fell down and now they're jumping up. I think we have the opposite of what we see with the new coasters happening. Um,
Okay.
I I think Voyage is in more of a solid position than Vengeance is, given how strong the numbers are for Voyage versus
The,
Vengeance.
the the margin for Voyage has always been so
Yes.
insurmountable the last several years. I mean, we called it a canyon 2 years ago. I
Yeah.
mean, and it really truly is.
It doesn't seem that big, but in comparison, it definitely is. And when you look at the steel coasters, you're talking about the top five being separated by like 0.6%. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of room for error and for change there in the top five steel.
yeah,
We've always talked about how Voyage has always had this buffer to work with, where if a new bunch of people ride it and don't like it for some reason, they're just a bunch of idiots. It can still withstand that,
yeah.
right? Steel Vengeance could not.
Well, and we've
Obviously
seen
with
it happen already.
Velocicoaster, right?
Yeah, we've seen it happen. We've seen it be knocked off at least once, so who knows?
Right.
And Untamed came real close to knocking it off a few times. Even last year was point three, not
Untamed's
even.
been very close a couple times. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So so you're talking about a top three that Vengeance has been in the lead this past year, but is jockeying. And now you're throwing in a whole nother level of ride in there.
Yeah.
Zadra, man.
Um,
Zadra.
well, and Zadra's the Iron Gwazi of today, where it's like it's cool to like Zadra now,
It
right?
is.
I don't know. Even though, which it's funny to me, I never understood this because Zadra's older than Iron Gwazi, so
Yeah. Well,
I never quite understood that. But I guess people people have ridden it more recently, I suppose. So I guess that's where that's coming from. But that always struck me as a bit odd. Is like people are like, "Oh, Zadra's the new Iron Gwazi." It's like it's 3 years
yeah,
older.
yeah. It's like, nah, Zadra's the old Iron Gwazi.
Right, exactly.
And nobody
So,
knew about it. So
all right. Well, so that'll do it for us here tonight. We've got two champions to crown. We've got a third champion to crown in the contest, and then we've got to go through our top 50, see where all these rides ended up. We know that there's been a lot of movement here
yeah,
in
that's
both
gonna
polls.
be
The wood coaster poll has not had a lot of movement in recent years, but we know there's at least a couple rides that are moving around here. So, we'll find out what happens with those next time when we crown all of our champions and go through the top 50 lists.
okay. Sounds good. As always, I am Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
See you next time, guys.